Hello and welcome to another episode of Distory. I believe we're already up onto episode number 8, and this is part number 7 of the one, the only Haunted Mansion. Becca, how you doing? What's going on, everybody? Let me pull in Miss Kate. We'll get this thing going. Thanks for joining us on a different day. No, it's not the norm. There we go. Howdy, howdy.
Hello.
What's going on?
Happy Saturday.
Yeah, happy Saturday, which is, I appreciate the accommodation for me going to a concert randomly on a Friday, which I almost never do. It's like very young of me in my old age.
I saw the videos of it on Instagram on your stories and I was laughing so hard. You look like you had a blast.
Oh, yeah, yeah. That's me reliving my early 2000s. So back when I was like 18 all the way through 25 was a lot of punk shows. Let me start us up here. Are you good with your setup? If everybody doesn't know, Kate has a new audio setup, so we're like monkeying around with that today. Are you good? Did you press record? Did you do all the things you're
Yes.
supposed to do?
Recording. It looks like our levels are good. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But hopefully for our podcast, we'll have excellent sound this week. That's my goal. So in
Sweet,
case you want to
awesome.
re-listen to this, you can also go and hear the podcast on anywhere you listen to podcasts. That's where it goes to.
But what
So
do they type in, Kate? Do they just type in Kate and
random
they just
stuff.
find you?
No. Distory with Kate and Kirk. If you search for that, it should pop up Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Music, and Google Podcasts. So
Love
you can
it.
find all those places.
All the places where you would enjoy podcasts. Go find that Distry. So once again, welcome to another episode of Distry. My name is Kirk from walruscarp.com, your home of hacks, snacks, and fun facts, and of course, theme park clothing. And to my second star to my right, my foolish co-host would be the one and only Disney Cicerone, Kate. Kate, what's
Hello.
happening?
I can't wait. Can't wait to get an attic. I'm so excited. I've waited all week.
It's been a time. I mean, we are on part 7 of the Haunted Mansion series. I even have our you guys have in Disneyland, you guys have all the cool stuff. So this
We
is
do.
Here Comes the Bride, and on the bottom it says, as long as we both shall live, for better or for worse, I do, I did. And it has your beloved bride churro and the what is it? The groom churro? What do they call it? Bride and groom churros back in the day at Disneyland. And then, of course, got a couple bites out of that poor groom's head. What happened to him?
He's lost his head. So sad.
Well, yeah. Well, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, so you know.
We'll see.
So what excites you so much about the attic that you couldn't wait for this week to happen?
Um, Before I jump into that, someone asked on my feed if that's a Walrus Carp shirt, and it is, right? The shirt you're
It
wearing.
is. It is. I see. I'm not one to just make WDW stuff. We make Disneyland stuff as well, and I'm jealous at the fact that you guys got these bride and groom churros. They were sold as a pair, which was really cool. We did have one churro for the Haunted Mansion, but it was very weak. The best thing that we probably got was the bride cake, which was like a I don't know. It was like a white cake with that gili on top, which is like kind of got a weird texture to me. But it had a little hatchet on the top of it, which was very cool. So yeah, JJ, what's up?
We
So
used to have
yeah,
that. We used to have that bride. The It was so delicious in the French Market in Disneyland. There was a Haunted Mansion cake that literally looked like it was splattered with blood. It was like kind of you had to like mind over matter in order to eat it, but it was so good. It was like tart cherries and vanilla. It was just the best. I can't believe they got rid of it because I miss it so much.
well, things much like everything, things change at Disney quite a bit, and that's okay. But it can be frustrating when you fall in love with something and then poof, it's gone. Speaking of which, before we get into everything, this was just really weird to me. And it could be issues of supply, uh, chain issues. The citrus swirl, which is the beloved orange bird's treat, the orange bird being for the Florida Citrus Company. The It was a frozen orange juice swirled with vanilla soft serve, and it was like orange juice concentrate. Went away on the menu for like 6 months, and then came back for 2 months, and then just unceremoniously, poof, gone,
Ugh.
and no nothing. I'm like, what is happening? Like they and stuff just changes. So and I know this is like pretty normal for a lot of things, but like Disney is just dumping some of the stuff that they've had with the 50th and whatnot. It's like, especially if you were planning this. This is what makes any of these trips so difficult. Imagine planning for a trip, get so excited about one specific snack, food, experience, whatever, and then here's a refurb, here's a new menu, and you're just like, oh gosh. Like they just redid the entire menu for Garden Grill, which this just in, that wasn't public knowledge. So,
Yeah.
hmm
Yeah. Oh, I was there when you learned about that. That was interesting.
yeah,
And
yeah.
it's
Turkey
I know that
shortage.
tur- is it chicken, turkey?
I
I
it
thought chicken.
went to it was turkey there, and then it switched to chicken now because there is a turkey shortage.
Wow, such a weird time. I know last time I was in Disneyland, I kept trying to get the raspberry rose macaron from Jolly Holiday Bakery, which if you ever go to Disneyland, everyone, you have to get that treat if it's available. It's literally the best thing I've ever eaten on a Disney property, but I could not
Ah,
order it for the life of me. I tried every single time and it was just like unavailable. So it
unavailable
kind
or
of,
sold out or both?
I think it was probably sold out for the day, but I'm not sure. It just was not there.
Okay.
Every time I tried to get it, it wasn't there. So
The one that really tickled me when I was there was the I love coconut macarons, and the macaroon that you guys do for the Matterhorn is not only an iconic ride, it's such a cool looking treat, and it's a combination of a coconut macaroon and shortbread. So,
yeah.
like, if there was one thing outside of Mickey beignets and a mint julep that I would say you have to try at Disneyland, it would be probably your raspberry macaron and the Matterhorn macaroon, which
Yeah, the
apparently the
raspberry.
soup is quite good too at Jolly Holiday. Jolly Holiday is
Yeah.
bringing the
Oh,
noise.
oh, that's my favorite place to eat. It's like I make a beeline there every time I go to Disneyland. The
Yeah.
first place I go is Jolly Holiday. I listen to the ragtime pianist play and just enjoy being on Main Street, people watching. But
Can I talk about the colloquial phrase beeline? Do you know bees communicate based on the different types of patterns that they walk? So, and a lot of times in the colony, they don't really go straight. So it's funny to hear the beeline because a lot of times it's like a ziggy zaggy. So it's like, man, you did a beeline? That's very inefficient.
I never really thought about that, but it's true. You kind of just like go wherever you want to get
Yeah,
whatever you need. Yeah. Well, shall we talk about the attic, the haunted mansion,
I
since that's
I
what we're
would
here?
I would love nothing more. So, transition, just to give us a little bit of a transition, we have left the Grand Hall, which most people would colloquially say is the ballroom scene. We have left the ballroom scene, and in Walt Disney World, we literally just enter directly into the attic. There is no transition. We don't move up a floor, even though that does happen in the Omni Mover. We pass by though the last of the Sinister 11 portraits, the opera glass woman. It's like very ghostly looking, and that moves us directly into the attic. What does it look like in land when you're transitioning?
It's just very dark. It's a big, long, dark hallway with a very loud beating heart, very obvious beating heart, which
I
will
love
make
that. That's such like a
right.
unique part of Disneyland, the beating heart, and it becomes a big thematic throughout the attic scene.
Mm-hmm. And so the attic, I think a lot of people who study the haunted mansion call the attic like the hinge. It's literally like a turning point in the story of the haunted mansion because it's we've had this kind of like build to the climax of the grand hall of the ballroom, and then because the ghost host has left us, we have decided to go off on our own on this tour, and we for the first time encounter something truly terrifying in the mansion in the attic. which is kind of where all the secrets are, right? So we've gone off on our own tangent here, and we're entering in the attic, and it's really interesting to me that the attic, the early design of the attic, the way that it was originally intended, it's not actually used for that anymore. And let me explain that a little bit, because the way that the attic is laid out, if you look here, the attic makes a really dramatic turn, right? Like super dramatic. And
Yeah.
the reason is because the bride figure, the beating heart bride, used to be right where you would turn. So you would see her and
Immediately.
you would flee from her. You were running away, so much so that you jumped out the attic window. So that, or some people might say you were pushed, but like in any case, you're fleeing the bride. That's why you make that dramatic turn. Now, she was only there. You can see it in this. This was an early, I think this was a model. This is where she was placed originally. She was there, and then you would turn and you would go out towards the window, and then the Hatbox Ghost was sitting next to the exit of the window. And so we'll talk a little bit more about specifically why he's there and those things soon. But the dramatic layout of this attic, it's interesting to me that it's no longer really used that same way because of the positioning of the bride. So,
Yeah. Yeah. The bride is so unique because in all of the stories, someone is with a partner for the most part, right? So
mm-hmm.
even with Captain Gore, you're having him with his significant other who finds out the fact that he's a pirate, and that's why he offs her. So it's unique in the sense that the bride is one of the few, or maybe not a bride, but at least a strong female character is integral to the story, at least in the multiples of iterations. It's one of the only true constants of the story, which it's not really constants the entire time, but we will get to that.
No. And yeah, so the bride really goes through a transformation, which we'll see as we'll go through the whole history of how she got developed here. But she goes through a really transformation of like, who is she? Like, she's a very mysterious character. There's sometimes she's the victim, sometimes she's the murderess. Like her storyline has changed so dramatically over time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but the really early concepts did originate with the an actual real ghost, which would be the Brown Lady of Ryanham Hall. I think is how you pronounce that. And this is from 1936. She was like a real ghost that haunted. I mean, if you believe in ghosts, that haunted her husband Townsend, who apparently had a temper. So it's very similar to that storyline of Priscilla and Captain Gore. She also did carry a lantern. She was known to carry a lantern. So that's a very early concept. And then we got from Ken
That's super
Anderson.
creepy, by the way, that picture.
I
Is
know.
that
Well,
what was did you have a date on that?
it was 1936.
I mean,
That's
19th, could you imagine it? Just put yourself, really try to go back in time to 1936. Imagine how the world just came out of the roaring 20s. You're in the Depression, right? World War II, right there. Somebody shows you that. Like, do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
there's certain things that I view as like magic or mysticism, and a lot of it's technology driven. And even in that case, that's a photograph, a black and white photograph in 1936 that, for all intents and purposes, is magic to me, right? Because
yeah,
that was such an innovation in technology. We had talked about memento moris being photographs of people when they had deceased, because that was the only really time that people could afford to take photos because it was such an expensive process. So could you imagine people seeing that in print or even in just somebody saying, I saw this picture? Now, we have the luxury of being able to Google anything at any one point. But there was a time period, and I know Kate remembers those time periods, where you would think of a question and you would just go, I have no idea who did that. And you would either have to go to a library or ask around or just wonder forever. And like
yeah.
those days are done. It's so interesting. And we're like past the point of the age of information, but it's just so crazy to me that like our access is there and things have changed. But what a creepy picture.
Yeah, it really is. And it inspired this one by Ken Anderson.
I
You can
mean,
see the
tell me
right there.
that's not inspired, more like completely ripped off, which I love the fact that Imagineers use so much of reality to construct the imaginary. And I think that's what's so unique about it. But remember, again, they had to figure out how to do it. You know, like what
Yeah.
that's a concept art. What were they going to do with that? And what was it going to look like?
And she does have a candle, I think, instead of a lantern in this. So the idea of her holding some sort of light source that did come from that original story. And so, like, remember that the Haunted Mansion, over the years, I mean, it took a very long time for this Haunted Mansion to really come together. And that a lot of that had to do with the 1964 World's Fair and them taking a lot of their Imagineers to work on that. So there was a long pause for the Haunted Mansion. And in that meantime, it's like they just did a ton of sketches. This, let me see which one it is. There's one that's, oh, you're going to like this one, Kirk. This one's super blurry, so I apologize. But this one was a Mark Davis.
Oh my gosh! So I've seen that one tons of times. I just like he loves putting cats. There's always a black cat in like every Mark Davis picture. I mean, even the ones of the earlier Madame Leota, there was a cat underneath the table and one by a chair. Just loves the cats. Cats everywhere.
The cat lover, yes. And this, you will recognize this one. What does this one remind you of?
It looks like Sinister 11. It looks like the opera glasses woman. Very similar, at
Right.
least.
Yep. This one.
Yeah, there she
Yep.
is.
It's
There she
almost
is.
exact. Like just clutching the cat, and except she's not holding a candle. She
I
has
mean,
this
I
creepy.
have a cat right here. I wish I could clutch it exactly the same, sitting over here, just hanging, chilling.
My
There's
cat.
another one. There's another one over here. See, so like you could tell my existence is very cat friendly.
My cats are hanging with my kids right now, so they're not. So,
We,
so that one
we
came next. Sorry, go
yeah.
ahead.
No. Yep, have at it.
So then, uh, gosh, then we had Mark Davis with the Bride. I want to make sure I get these in order for you guys. So, we have this one. This one is Mark Davis sketch of Bride. So that's like instead of just a ghost, she's actually like a bride figure, and you can see the organist behind her. I don't have a lot of information about this one other than it's a bride concept. But it almost gives me like Phantom of the Opera brides vibes, not brides. So because it's and we also have the spiders up there too, which are very iconic in the Haunted Mansion. They're virtually everywhere. But so he did that one next, and then after that, oh, this one's one of my favorites.
Did
This
we ever talk about cobwebs and how they construct cobwebs?
No, I don't think we ever touched on that.
So I know of one way that they did it, at least for Tower of Terror and for parts of the Haunted Mansion. I don't know if there's another process that you may be aware of, but under pressurized air, they basically shoot hot glue through a pressurized gun that shoots strands of hot glue. So like you know how like when you're making crafts, like you always have that one edge, like when you're done and you're like, ugh, and
Yeah.
it's like annoying. It's pretty much what all the cobwebs are made of. And now what's so cool about it, they've been there for so long that hot glue has now accumulated so much dust from just guests, walking through and it just accumulating on those strands that it really is super, super dusty fake spider webs.
And they did have a lot of those. This is the concept art for it. They had a lot of concepts of spider webs, and they did hang them. They had hanging. This says hanging strings on the bottom of this because they had hanging string cobwebs, but the guests like pulled them down within the first couple of days. But they were supposed to like run over your face and be creepy, right?
So,
But
oh my gosh, can I talk about something?
yeah,
Please.
sorry.
So if you go all the way out to the middle of Pennsylvania, there is a very, very old school, which I think is probably the most iconic. You would love it. You would absolutely love it. It's a place called Knoebels. And they have one of the very first dark ride, what we would call or reference a spook house, which was more like jump scary, but they
Mm-hmm.
still have the old yarn, just yarn. And when you go through this one dark section, yarn just hits you on the face. It's so creepy, but they have like a lot of really fun things that actually kind of have some crossovers to the Haunted Mansion that we have. And it is called the Haunted Mansion, which is kind of funny because trademark wise, you would think like, how can they call it the Haunted Mansion? but there's a grandfather clock that has like an arm that comes out at you. It's like
Oh my
all these
gosh.
great gags, like sight gags. It is legit scary. It's like it's scary, but they use a lot of sound effects too. Where here you're using diegetic and non-diegetic sounds. They use a lot of like just the best way I could say it is alarming sounds. You know, like it's stillness, quiet, and then just like you're like, oh my heart. You know, those kind of things. But
Like
it's I
like
love
the
it.
equivalent of jump scares, right? Like, yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, and if we're talking about spider webs too, like we have to talk about the fact that they got a lot of their inspiration for the spider webs from Dracula, the movie Dracula, because he would actually walk through the spider webs without disturbing them.
What?
So that was in 1931, I think, is when that movie came out. But
Would
yeah,
did
he
they
would.
did they do that with like a two shot frame like they would do for you know how with the animation they would layer? Was this a
Yeah,
layering approach? Is that how they filmed one
actually,
scene and
I'm
then
not
layered on
researching how
top?
they did it, but they might. It might be. Yeah, I don't
I
know.
would I would assume that they probably used a static layer and then transposed him walking through that space so that it's remained intact, but yet the film was because I mean that was if you think about the time period too, and even Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, which we saw that stacked layering approach, that was like a new process in film that probably a lot of directors were playing with to create effects, and that works pretty well.
Yeah. And my husband, Elliot, who is our doctor of musicology, he said in the comments that, excuse me, I'm sorry, loud sound effects are sometimes referred to as stingers in film.
Stingers. Well, I got
Stingers.
stung because they were zapping me left and right. It's just so crazy.
And if we're also talking about cobwebs, I think we skipped over this part. You guys used to have these spiders in the Florida version.
Did we
That
really? I never remember them.
Yeah, it was in the very dark part when you're headed into the staircase before it became the endless staircase. It was
Oh,
like the
no
grand
way.
staircase. Yeah, there was two spiders, but that's also where the man in the web was supposedly at, maybe during like past preview. It's kind of a he's a like a it was almost like the Hatbox Ghost equivalent, he's this almost this mythical person who was a like a skeleton corpse that was stuck in a spider web. And it was when the ghost host says, we have 999 happy haunts, but there's room for 1,000. Any volunteers? When he would say any volunteers is when you would see that guy stuck in the spider web, and that's why it was supposed to be such an impact with the original vocal track. Is like any volunteers, and you're like, oh, like this is what's going to happen to me if I volunteer. But they pulled the man in the web. He kind of, I guess he floated around the haunted mansion, and cast members used to use him to like scare each other. So, and then he eventually just disappeared, and so we haven't seen him since. So,
So
don't know what.
personal story, and I'll make it very brief. When I worked at the brewery at Flying Fish, one of the owners was named Andy, and they had a mannequin that was called Foam Andy. And Foam Andy would get dressed up in a top hat and would get stuck in various places. So I'd be walking into a cold box, flip on the lights, and there's Foam Andy staring at you. It's horrifying. So I can imagine the cast members enjoying the spider web man to great effect because many times I've been terrified of Foam Andy.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and they would put him like, I guess, under stairs in dark corners and stuff, and then like new recruits to the haunted mansion, they would like flash a light on him, and it was terrifying. Apparently, from the stories I hear, it's just stories. So
Dude, you know we are 1 month away from the servant quarters?
I know, I can't wait. I'm so ready.
Okay, all right. We can't talk about it, but yes, so exciting.
Anyway, we should get back to the bride because
Yes,
she's got
please.
a lot more
She's
stuff. So after after that sketch of Mark Davis, he did this sketch, which is not really a bride, but does have a heart. So this is called the moving, like we call it moving lights ghost, because it's like there would have the concept of the lights would move within this one. Still wasn't quite a bride, but does have a heart.
also does have kind of like a draping in terms of costuming effect. So like a
Yes.
almost like a shroud more than a dress, but we're getting closer.
Yes. And then we have this one, which combines that moving lights one with the Ken Anderson one with the candle. And we also have a dog instead of a cat. So, you know,
I love that
we're,
one too. That's a great one.
yeah, this one is a Mark Davis, but it's kind of a combination of that him the Anderson sketch, and that is the one that was going to get put in the attic. So, and the idea of a bride kind of came about because there's a couple ones. There was a serial comic journal in 1876 that had a ghost bride that looked like this. The idea of having a bride that haunts you kind of came from a couple different places. Oh, this one's the Phantom Bride. I'm sorry. This is actually an actress that had a routine where she levitated and vanished. And then the journal one looked like this. This was the 1876 one. This was a journal of a bride who's just kind of like all eternity gonna haunt the house. Maybe a little bitter. So very where they get those concepts of it. And I love that there's spiders in that one too. That just makes me happy. Spiders are ever present when it's creepy.
I like, weird thing to say to another human, spiders make me happy, but based on that hair bow, it makes perfect sense. Also, I found somebody always people ask me, randomly like where their favorite characters merch is. And this is a tough one. Was Nightmare Before Christmas merch. There really isn't a lot unless it's Christmas time in Disney. But then I found a whole treasure trove where Tower of Terror. Tower of Terror has a ton of Nightmare Before Christmas. However, we just had big news. Memento Mori just got finished. It got completely
Yeah.
refurbed. So you know that Memento Mori section where they used to do pictures, but then they also had those actual replicas of people who had died and gotten their pictures taken. Well, that has become
Yeah.
like a register section, which has opened up the store. I still have to see it. So Becca, when we have your Carpe Diem on Monday, we'll make sure to go and check out the new store and see what it looks like inside because I'm super curious. They had those like fun special effects, so I hope that they got a little bit fixed up and maybe a few other new secrets. Who knows?
Oh, I can't wait to see it. I'm so excited. Just a little bit more. Um, that's exciting. Oh, man, I wonder what they did in there. So the version that we saw with the one with the candle is kind of like that was the one that they had planned to put in the. We just realized April to December portraits in this one too.
Yeah. So I was gonna ask that. Skip had mentioned April, December. Where is it located now?
In Disneyland.
Yeah, in Disneyland, because I know
Yeah.
where ours is. Ours is in the Endless Stairway room, but
Yeah, ours is if you are going to load. So after you walk past the moving bus and you're walking towards the loading area, there's like a door that has lightning and like a grill that looks like a demon face. And then next to it on the wall on the right is April to December. She's in the loading area. And then
oh,
you'll see
cool.
the cat after that. But a lot of people miss her because they're looking towards the loading area and like anticipating getting on the ride and they completely miss it. So make sure you look to the right when you're on Disneyland Haunted Mansion because then
I mean,
you'll see
I think that's
her.
just a good piece of advice. Anytime you're in Disney World, Disneyland, make sure to be looking at all different directions. What's really fun for me is we just came back from a trip with the girls, and I didn't do any live streaming. Live streaming, you kind of are focused where the focal points are, and you're not really kind of drifting around. When I ride the attraction and I'm not taking content, I'm not streaming, I'm not doing any of that, and I'm just like exploring, it's very much like a historical perspective of panning and scanning every little corner and crevice of places. That's why I think I found that Peter Pan, which I'm going back on Monday.
Okay.
We'll find out and see. But yeah, like to me, I know you and we make a lot of social media content, but when you just get to ride the ride and explore visually, auditorily, you miss so many things because you're stuck in this versus
Right.
everything, and
Right.
sometimes that peripheral is so important.
Yep, it absolutely makes all the difference when you can just really take it all in. And I love that Actually, was thinking about that the other day because the last time I was in Disney World with you and you were live streaming, I was just taking content. So I was like looking at all the details.
Yeah,
But now it's actually really funny because all of my clips have your voice in the background. So I want to make like a montage
of just voices. The
of
you know
random
what's
things
you know
Kirk
what's
says.
funny is so the one thing that is unique is I never had my phone ready because my phone was always in my pocket. So as a result, if I found something that was really great, I'm like, oh man, I got to make sure next time I'm in here I take that. Or if I had what I felt was enough time, you would just see a lot of this. Okay, all right, let me
I
get
do that
that.
all the time.
Just the fumble. Luckily, I mean, iPhones are so great in the sense that they have that quick like shortcut in the front to open up the to take a video. Because otherwise, I would miss a lot of the content. You know.
No, me too. Oh my gosh. I'm glad I'm not the only one that does the fumble. I'm sure there's people who aren't even content creators that do the fumble because they see something they want a
Well,
photo
yeah.
of.
I mean, even if you just want to take pictures of like spontaneously in the parks, at least it happens a lot with characters. Or there's a moment with your kids or with the people that you're with, and you just want to
Yeah.
capture it real quick. I think we all are guilty of the like, oh, where's my phone?
Yeah. That's why I haven't used my
Team
oh, my
fumble.
husband got me a lounge fly for Mother's Day. He
Mm-hmm.
actually did me a Mother's Day gift. He got me a Mickey pretzel lounge fly.
Ooh, nice.
And I'm really excited to use it, but I'm struggling because I usually just slide my phone where I can get it really quick from my bag. But if it's in my lounge fly, I'm like, I'm gonna have to have pockets. Like,
The lounge flies have side bet
my
things.
phone won't fit in it. It's like the gigantic, Pro Max phone, so it won't. I can't.
Hang on, I can't fit this in my pocket. What are you thinking? Like walking around with a MacBook Air or whatever,
I
taking
know it's
content.
like my iPad.
I stream. Listen, guys, I stream on my ThinkPad, so it's sometimes it's a little big. So, it is.
Start walking around with my laptop. Just oh gosh. Anyway, we've gone a little off course. Let's bring it back. Let's dial it
Let's
back to
reel
the
it
bride.
back. Reel it back.
So the one that you saw in the bride when the ride opened was actually called the Corpse Bride. She looked like sorry.
I gotcha.
Yeah, you got it. Actually, that's the later version. This
Really?
was the
Oh,
early
that's
version.
the. Hang on. It's the one
This
with
is the
the.
Corpse Bride.
Oh, geez. What? That was the.
Yeah.
Was that for both of them?
Yeah. Yes, in Disneyland, this was from 1969 to 70,
Oh,
and
that
then in
didn't last long. Oh, wow.
no, and in
Yeah, no wonder I didn't know.
Disney World, it was 71 to 73, 1971 to 73. So yeah, she didn't last long. She was there, but I'm pretty sure this version and the one that was next, because after that in the late 1970s, we got the blackface beating heart bride, which I think this one's one of her. She looked like this. She was like definitely different one, but I think at least I know in the one that came after, they did incorporate the moving lights in it. And it was in the 60s and 70s too. So they actually had lights that would move around the body of it. And you can see this was a very pixelated picture of the um, the blueprints for it, of how the lighting structure would work on the inside.
That's
So
so wild.
yeah, she'd not only have a beating heart, but also lights that would kind of move around her limbs. So
Did
at
the
some point,
audio track for her change as the iterations of her physicality as well?
well, she didn't have an audio track. She just had the beating heart sound. And I
Okay.
think they did where Here Comes the Bride. But I don't think
Okay.
she had an audio track until Constance that I can think of.
Yeah, I mean, for us, Constance was 2006, maybe.
I
So
do
yeah, there
have
was
an
nothing.
track. I have an audio track from 1970. Here, I've got an audio track from 1976 that actually does tell you like the whole thing. But it does have screaming in it because of the pop-up ghosts, which we'll have to talk about in a few minutes. That's it. So there's just this is like the thump thump thump
Yeah,
thump
it's just
of
in
the
the
heart
background.
and the screaming.
The
But there's
Telltale Heart.
yes, which thank you for mentioning that, because if we remember, a lot of the inspiration for things in the Haunted Mansion came from classical sources. Mark Davis loved to do his research, and he loved Edgar Allan Poe. That's where we got the Raven from in the Haunted Mansion, and the idea of the heart beating, definitely from the Telltale Heart story. So I almost forgot that.
Yeah, the real quick of Telltale Heart, guy kills his wife, right? Buries her in the floorboards, or kills somebody, buries him in the floorboards, and the guilt, because he thinks he hears the heart beating, the guilt eventually makes him go mad and turns himself in. So,
yep. And so after we get the black, they call her the black face bride because she had a black face, and then we get a blue face one here, which came in 95 in Disneyland and 97 in Disney World. Very soon. So a lot of this stuff would come into Disneyland first, and then they'd road test it, and then they would get to put it in the Disney World version. I think I have a picture of her when she's lit up too. Oh, and Disney World had this. Disney World's version was the one with the like wind and the wild hair. This is the Disney World version. And she had like a lot of fans, and she would like oscillate. She had a lot going on.
Well, I also think about this. A part of her hair was specifically designed to almost mimic Medusa with the snakes. That was also kind of a part of the inspiration.
Yeah, well, we didn't have that in the Disneyland version. That one was only in the Disney World.
See, sometimes we get things that are better. Not often, but sometimes.
She was. I think somebody nicknamed her the Windswept Bride because she had so many fans on her. So I loved that. I think that was. Oh, here's a picture of her. This is the Disneyland version, I believe, all without her dress on. And it looks weird here, but as you could see when she was in the dark and well lit up, it was very, very effective.
You know what's so funny is like all of the early audio animatronics, they all look like that with like a plexiglass almost exoskeleton, because we see that utilized for pirates as well.
Yeah, and this one was very effective for the ghosts. They use that a lot in the graveyard ghosts as well, because it makes their bodies like see-through. So it's just more ethereal look for for the Haunted Mansion ghosts. So it was an interesting thing with her heart, that it was like the beating heart was it changed over time, the meaning of it. Like was it beating because it was broken? Was it beating because it was torturing somebody, like the Telltale Heart? Was it a threatening, menacing thing because she was coming after you? Like, this was all the contradictions of the bride, and it almost just did shift through history as they did different storylines, which I always think is really fascinating. And go ahead. Sorry.
No. Go for it.
Well, and then, so the bride was, as we talked about before, she was positioned in that pivot point where you would see the bride, and then your doom buggy would turn, and you would head out to the attic, because she was terrifying, quite frankly. I mean, we saw those pictures, all of it just looked pretty terrifying. But she did move to the end of the attic, and the reason was she moved towards closer to the door. She moved to the place where the Hatbox Ghost used to be. He was only there for a very, very brief period of time. I have one of his current iteration. But the long and short of it is, they made this Hatbox Ghost, and they put him in the attraction, and it was supposed to be this interplay between the bride and the Hatbox Ghost, where he is the undesirable companion, and she is like a morality figure. This idea of almost like a gold digger. She was like an older gentleman. She was a younger bride. Thank you for that. Yeah. And so he was going to be there, and I believe from everything that I've read and looked at, he was supposed to be one of her husbands, but it's debated about whether he was an accomplice. We don't really know. So, but he didn't last long because the effect didn't actually work. It wasn't convincing. So they removed him from the Haunted Mansion only like sometime shortly after opening. And he became this like legend over the years of like the Hatbox Ghost. Do you remember the Hatbox Ghost? And people are like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, wasn't it a light? It was a lighting issue. I think the lighting, it was either too bright or too dark for it to be fully effective, and that's the reason why they dumped him. But
Yep.
I don't know why. Honestly, why did they say that he was ugly or whatever? I think he's hat. He's real hat.
He's a handsome dude. Oh my gosh. Yeah, he's so it, the concept that I have heard, and this might not be total official, was that, he is holding up a box revealing Constance's crime before she was just the beating heart bride's crime of doing in her husband's. He was holding up the evidence of it. And so we kind of get this idea of there's justice in the afterlife, that she did not get away with it because she's not down in the graveyard partying with all the ghosts. She's not in the ballroom having a good time. She's stuck in the attic with all of her victims for like all eternity. Like she's isolated and alone. And
Which,
so
in the Muppets Haunted Mansion version, they really effectively portray Constance being stuck and imprisoned.
mhm,
Like at the very end, she's like screaming out the window because she's there. She's like entombed, but cursed forever.
right. And so that makes her, in my mind, even more scary. Like truly one of the most terrifying things about the Haunted Mansion is that she's this really tortured ghost soul that is stuck in this place, and anybody who comes through is kind of fair game. So for them to then make that ride so that it turns away from her and you flee, whether she's chasing you, whether you're just running, either way, very interesting idea. And I'm a little sad that we don't have that anymore now that she's positioned closer to the exit of the attic. And of course, the Hatbox Ghost, just to wrap that up, we did get the Hatbox Ghost back in, I think it was around Disneyland's 50th
It
anniversary.
was the
Yes,
60th anniversary in
thank you.
2015 is when
Thank you. I
he
was like, I know it's
was.
an anniversary.
Yep, you're good. You're good.
So they did fix that effect with modern technology, that now he's very, very effective. His head will disappear and go into the hat box, and then the hat box, it will disappear and his head will go back onto his shoulders. So and it's really fantastic effect. He's actually positioned outside, slightly outside of the attic. He's not really in it. He's just past the, you see right now, you see Constance on your left, and then you'll see the Hatbox Ghost right as you're about your dune buggy is turning backwards to go down into the graveyard. But yeah, Hatbox Ghost. I wish you guys had him in Disney World. He's such a great character.
Well, you know what's so funny, right? Is he's a great character and he's iconic everywhere. And the only thing that we do have is we have him in the endless hallway. So for us, we still do get the Hatbox Ghost. It just is in a portrait. So
Yeah.
he exists, and most people have no idea that he exists. So I'll show you. Everyone knows the Haunted Mansion wallpaper, right? Here, once again, Hatchet Man, aka our ghost host. But if you look in the endless hallway, you will see a little Hatbox Ghost. Although different hat, like a bowler hat on this one. The one actually in ours does not have a bowl. Look, zoom in on me. Does not have a bowler hat. He has a top hat on. I know because I took a bunch of content. I remember when I took it, I thought I was uncovering something new, and I was like, "Wait, Kate, hang on. Look who I found." And you were like, "Duh, dummy, that's always been there." And I was like, "Oh, okay. All right, never mind. I didn't find anything. Ignore what I
Yeah,
just sent you."
him and all of the pop-up ghosts from the graveyard, or what is featured in the corridor of doors in those portraits. They use the same audio animatronics. They're just photos of them, essentially. So
Yeah.
and the Hatbox Ghost also was inspired by a stage thriller that was made into a movie later, called Night May Fall, where a young man kind of insinuates himself with a family, and then he's later revealed as a murderer and puts his victims' heads in hat boxes. So that was filmed in 1937 and in 1964, which is very close to when they are finalizing these concepts for things. So it would be really surprising to me if that did not influence the idea of putting heads in hat boxes.
Shocker. Imagineers utilized contemporary inspiration.
Mm-hmm. I know, crazy. crazy world. So Hatbox Ghost, and so we did touch on the pop-up ghosts not long ago. Do we want to talk about those a little bit?
Well, I mean, there was pop-up ghosts in the attic. Is that what you're referring to?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so the ones that we were screaming.
Yes. They're I think okay, so this is I love this. Okay, so originally they were just like ghouls that would pop up. We'll have to get back to Constance. We'll talk to Constance, but let me mention the pop-up heads real quick because they were just screeching and screaming like we heard on the recording until 1995. But they decided to like redo them a little bit in 95, and they dressed them up in Disney World. You know, like this. They dressed them up as groomsmen.
Well,
Some of them even had
getting
like
married,
top
you know?
hats. And they just popped up, like screaming. And it was supposed to allude to the husbands that she had done and in Disneyland, their version, which I'm not sure I have a photo of, they actually said "I do." They screamed "I do."
Oh, I like that better. That's so much better. That's a better stinger, if you ask me.
Uh-huh. And they did it in a whole bunch of different voices too. And so it was I don't think I have a photo of them, but yes, fabulous. Oh no, this is just another one from another angle. You can see how he's just tucked behind a trunk there, just popping on up. And there was a couple of them all throughout the attic. They would all have different voices. And so of course
I wonder why they removed them.
I'm guessing, well, they did it when they redid all the set dressing for Constance, is really when they took them out. And they're like, let's just go a different direction. And they did replace them, though, with husbands with disappearing heads. So this concept is still there, but it's just done differently.
But it's not scary. It's a cool effect, though. It's a very cool effect.
Creepy. Yeah, it's more creepy than all, the jump scares. So, speaking of which, should we talk about Constance? Because I think we gotta land there.
I mean, we look at the backstory. I mean, this is
Mm-hmm.
where we're heading, kids. Is all of her husbands, and the fact that Constance goes away from being this tortured bride to being a Black Widow bride, or a seductress who basically is looking for more opulence and wealth in her life, and that's how she chooses her husbands. Which looking for more opulence and wealth in her life, and that's how she chooses her husbands. Which do you want me to go through the husbands really quickly, or?
Yes, please do.
Okay, so I'm gonna read a little bit. Everybody always asks about the books, and I really do truly think that these are the two best books about the Haunted Mansion. First one is The Haunted Mansion: Imagineering a Disney Classic by Jason Searle, and then Boundless Realm, written by
Fox Nolt.
Fox Nolt. So,
I also grabbed a few things from this particular podcast from a wonderful blog. It's called Long Forgotten Haunted Mansion. Long Forgotten.
There was I can't remember what the name. It was something about doom buggies. There was a guy who had a podcast too for it, and all he did was focus on it was like an old school GeoCities website, and he's written a book about the Haunted Mansion. I've never read his book, but I've heard him on podcasts, and he's fantastic too. And he used to do like meetups and stuff with like all crazy, super involved Haunted Mansion. Disneyland guy too. I think it was the doombuggies.net was his website.
Anyway. Yeah. Yes.
Good pictures though too.
There's some really great blogs out there. So if I run into any more, I'll let you guys know, because I do want to support fellow writers who are doing amazing things. But let's talk about the husbands.
Okay. So here we are. 1869 is Ambrose and Constance, showing Constance towering over her groom in the bowler hat, which sometimes misnomer people call this the bowler hat guy, which is, okay, I kind of see what you're talking about from the stretching room. However, that would just be conjecture, not actual truth. But if you look physically at the way that he is dressed, his suit is rather ill-fitting. He looks rather innocent and is very unfashionable, as they would say, in his very sensible woolen suit. So her very, very first husband And in fact, I don't know if I have pictures of the adornment of Ambrose's, like, what his stuff is. Do you have one for each one of their scenes?
Yeah, I got it right here. And this one I love because he was a farmer, and the box says "Will Plow" is the name on the. This makes me happy. And then there's also you'll see that the champagne, they're not flutes, the champagne glasses. One is knocked over, which is like a subtle hint to his fate, which I love. So,
Mm.
but you can see that everything is not. There's not anything terribly expensive there because they didn't have that much money yet. You
Yeah, he
know,
was
he
a
was a
farmer.
farmer. They were just starting out. She wasn't wealthy yet because this was her first.
First, but not only. So, all right, now we move on to 1872 with Constance and Frank. Second marriage, this one to an Eastern banker and a pillar of his community. You notice the gifts on this tend to be more porcelain, and in this one, there's a figure of a Frenchman who's been knocked over and head has snapped off. And you also see some Victorian banners with cupids, flowers saying "True Love Forever." There they are, Frank and Constance.
And the way that that affects, if you haven't been on this ride, I'm hoping you have, but
Spoiler
if you
alert.
haven't, the way that this effect works is that there is a light inside it that lights one of the images, and there's a light that's up in the rafters that projects another onto it. So they kind of alternate which one is the internal lighting versus the external lighting, and that's how it fades from one to the other.
Mm-hmm. Now, I actually think that this is one of my favorite scenes is the marquee. So in 1874, the diplomat is going to be the third. Dude, she's got a lot of husbands, but this poor guy, the marquis, seen here in full military dress uniform. So she has moved on from a farmer to a banker to a diplomat slash military, and you notice there's a lot of Asian influence as well, with porcelain, swords. I think ours actually also has a rug that's hung like as a tapestry almost as well. And you can see a samurai sword there, as well as the sword that is on. Is there one, or is that just ripped on the chair? I'm having a hard time seeing.
Um, well, I think it's a cane, right?
Oh, is this
No,
cane?
this might be the wrong one. Is this the right one? That's the right one.
That should be
Oh,
the
it's the
right one
samurai.
for him.
Yeah, no, the sash. You see, the sash that he's wearing is actually in that photo is actually on the chair.
Oh, to the right
Sash
hand side, yeah.
there. Mm-hmm. I know it's really hard to see in this photo. Yeah, but he does have a lot of things that he like picked up on his foreign travels in
Now,
that
in this
area too.
book, it's saying, near the portrait stands a hat rack upon which hangs a hat from each of Constance's 5 husbands. Is there any truth to that?
Yes, that is true. I think I have a photo of it. This is it. That's the thing that the hat boxes that I showed you.
Well, right.
At the end,
So that's
there's
later
that.
on the right hand side.
Yeah, it's the hat boxes. It's really hard to see on the actual ride. Like I've rarely seen the actual hats, but the hat boxes are pretty easy to
I've
spot.
seen the hat boxes are easy. I see the hat boxes every single time. I never noticed that there was a hat rack.
Yeah, and it's
Interesting.
the same
And
hats that they're wearing in photos are on the hat rack,
all right,
implying
we'll
that
come
hat box
back. Uh,
must be something else inside.
well, hold off. All right, we got to keep some secrets, right?
I know.
We'll get there. We'll get there. We'll get there. All
Say all
right,
the things.
now we're going to see the one and only Reginald, who is a railroad baron, gambler, and a well-renowned gourmand. Well, yeah, you can tell he is well-fed, for sure. If you notice, just like clothing-wise, right, we went from a very ill-fitting suit from Ambrose to fancier with a top hat with Frank. then the Marquis with that military dress, and then now with our Baron Reginald, a very distinguished gentleman. Apparently has an enormous ring on his little finger,
Hmm.
which you don't see in the portrait. So I'm
Oh,
curious.
well, that one's cut off for yours, so you might see it if this picture was more zoomed in. But
I wonder if it's
it,
on.
it,
Is it on his pinky ring?
it might be.
Because
And
that
then
is a
the
sign
picture,
of power. Like mafioso types do that.
well, then
Will
that
wear
would make sense.
pinky rings as like a sign of power. There's this is just like kind of a random aside, but all of your fingers, and depending on where you wear rings, there is Greek mythology behind all of them. I believe Mars, the god of war, is the pinky ring. I know Venus is love. That's your ring finger. Bacchus, the god of wine and partying, is your middle finger. Your pointer finger is Zeus, and your thumb is Poseidon. And the reason why Poseidon is separate is because he was the only god that wasn't on Mount Olympus. So,
Interesting.
yeah,
I've never heard that
that's
before.
where the mythology of why we wear rings on certain fingers. Anyway, moving forward.
Well, in this photo, you also see he has his the same chair that's in the photograph is sitting next to the portrait, and his cane as well is sitting there on the chair.
Yeah, much nicer. Like, look at that tiger skin rug. It's
Yeah,
awesome.
fancy. Oh, there is a carpet, a rug hanging up in the back. I think
Maybe
that's
maybe I there was. It's interesting. If you look at the 1800s too, there was a fascination with China, or what they would refer to non-politically correct as like the Orient. There was a lot that was confused about that too, and even going into. Remember we talked about in Rhode Island, they have those really gorgeous mansions.
yeah.
One of them has a tea house that has like a Shanghai temple built into it, which is kind of like crazy, but that was like a part of showing your wealth and your worldliness, was to have some sort of Asian influence as well. So,
Yeah, and looking at these photos of Constance as well, I don't think we mentioned yet that she gains a strand of pearls with each marriage because she becomes more wealthy and she
yeah,
buys herself
so,
a new
yep.
necklace.
So in this whole entire thing, here's string one, string two, enhance, string three, string four. And I mean, if you look at the years too, 69, 72, 74, 75, 77. Because you look at her and you go like, man, she doesn't really age that much. And it's only because it's
Just a
been,
couple of years.
it's only been 8 years that she's
Yeah.
been clipping husbands. So,
Yeah, and the I will mention too the portraits, which I forgot to mention, is the this was like a craze in Victorian times of taking photos and then making yourself headless. So the idea that the Imagineers came up with these portraits of these headless gentlemen was actually something that they did do in the Victorian era. They took the negatives and they cut them apart and then they made themselves look headless. So it's an interesting connection to that kind of macabre Victorian fun that they had.
Scorp said it's like clipping coupons.
Pretty much.
So,
Same thing.
so this is my favorite one of the portraits, and specifically because this is the most popularized storyline builder, because George is from the stretching room. So when they redid the storyline to match the stretching room, George is the final husband who has the hatchet in his head from the stretching room. And the bride is seen here. What was George's? We don't have George's occupation. We just know
Uh,
that he has crystal bowls, vases. There was a lot of
he's
crystal
a
and
he's a real
china.
estate owner. He was a real estate owner, and so it was rumored that he owned the haunted mansion, and then she got the haunted mansion when he died. which has actually some story issues if that's actually true. But he's a relative of Harrison Hightower III, who owns the Tower of Terror in Tokyo. So he's related to him. So they were both in real estate together. And that's what he
Oh,
did.
oh, that's very cool.
Hmm. So yeah, and that's obviously the most wealthy of all of them. And so that then it says that she gets the mansion. But if we're going to say that it is the Gracie's manor or the Gracie family that owns the haunted mansion, that's when we run into a problem with that storyline. So it's really hard to say who's who.
Hmm.
Who owns the mansion? I don't know.
Well,
Could be
I mean,
constants.
the only thing that I
Hard to
could
say.
say is that there are structures that change ownership, but the name doesn't change. So that's, sometimes that's just due to legacy, or to keep keep some of the value of the home, because sometimes that happens depending on like whom owned it prior. But yeah, you're correct. Who owns it? I
When
don't know.
when it was in the stretching room, in Exitensio's script, an earlier script, she was called Abigail Pate Cleaver instead of Constance Hatchaway. So she had a different name until they changed the storyline, and then by default, it made the stretching room Constance instead of Abigail. However, the problem with that is that the ghost host says there's some portraits of our guests. So then that would mean that she doesn't own the mansion if she is a guest. So
Yeah.
it's a little continuity there doesn't match up for that
Yeah,
theory.
I don't think she owns it.
That's what a lot of people have said because
I
she
mean,
married George
well,
Mansion.
when you think about it too, the the whole building itself is supposed to be a retirement home for ghosts, right? So, who owns a retirement home? The owner, who usually is alive, because so who's renting out space to these folks? I don't know. We
I
we
mean,
shall never know.
yeah, I mean, I also would think that if she passed away, if she's dead now, then somebody else has to own the mansion, right? Because she can't own it if she's deceased.
Hmm.
So maybe it's the Gracie family that got it after she passed.
Yeah,
I don't know.
maybe.
I don't know.
Riley asked a good question. Well, who owns the mansion? Is it Master Gracie? So I just do want, or the Great MacGuffin. The Great MacGuffin was from the Muppets one, which is hysterical. But the uh, the Master Gracie thing was actually from the Imagineer Yale Gracie, and it was a play on the fact that he was this older gentleman with like a bunch of younger people. So it was actually using his name, saying that he was like master, like a kid, Master Gracie. I used to get that too, like Master Lavecchia, when I would get mail, like way back when people would actually pen letters when I was a kid. It'd be Master Kirk Lavecchia. And I'm like, Master of what? I didn't get it when I was a kid. So,
Yeah. So I don't know. It's not very clear who owns the mansion at this point. It could be lots of people, but or could be yeah. I'm not sure.
now,
They actually created a problem with that storyline of Constance.
do you still have the harpsichord and the shadow playing?
Oh yeah, we bypassed that.
I got
Yes,
you.
we yeah he. I'm trying to figure out when he was added. I feel like it was in the 90s, maybe the 80s. I did have that somewhere.
Oh, and while you're flipping at that, here I'll just bring this back up. There is the redone storyline with Constance, and that's why George and Constance is holding that rose. That's the continuity of the portrait from the stretching room to the portrait in the attic. Poor George. May he rest in peace. Is
I don't know the year. I feel like it was in the 80s when that the harpsichord was added with the shadow ghost who plays. And some people have said it's one of her husband's. I don't know if that's true in the Disneyland version, where that shadow ghost is playing up in the attic. We do see 7 hat boxes next to the Hatbox Ghost. And if she only had 5 husbands, we could
yeah. Who are
say
the
that
other two?
the piano playing ghost is one of them. But then who's the other after that? I don't know. Is
Yeah.
it Is it the Hatbox Ghost himself? Like, could that be? I don't know. So it's a we're not sure. There's a kind of mysterious things that we may never know that are
Sure.
just because the storyline was so convoluted and the way that it's come about over the years. So, um, and then the Constance herself, when they added her, that was in 2007. 2006 for Disneyland, 2007 for Disney World. When they added her, um, she is a little bit different in both. In Disneyland, she only has one arm movement where she raises the hatchet. In Disney World, she can move both arms, or sometimes she raises it with two arms versus just one. And they do use like a 3D projection on her. So her face is actually completely smooth versus all the other versions of the bride. She had more of a 3D figure to her face. So that's what makes it a little bit different. But because of that, if you look at her from the side, you can tell that her face is smooth. So that's why they added those curtains that didn't used to be there to cover that, so you can't tell if you're going by her that her face is flat. So if you see those curtains waving in the wind, they're there to make sure you don't see the effect. Actually, I have a picture of the curtains. They're on this one. So you can see in this one how her face is just completely flat. And when they use that, they did the same thing they did with Madame Leota, where they use a different voice versus a different actress. So the actress is Julie Lee, and the voice is Kat Cressida. There's two different actors or actresses that made that happen.
So I'm working on it. I'm working on getting the voice actress on a show.
Really?
Yeah, she reached out to me the other day and we were just chatting about stuff. And she was like, "Oh, yeah, I've done a couple of things." And I was like, yeah, I kind of know. So,
That's cool.
still working on it.
That's amazing. That would be so cool. Um, that I also point out that Constance in this iteration of Constance, she truly is the like some of the most terrifying I think of any of them, because she's actually very maniacal. If you look at the portrait that go back to her picture there, Kirk. In all of her portraits, she looks very stoic. She looks very calm. She looks very somewhat normal, right? So this idea of illusion versus reality is a theme that we've had in the entire Haunted Mansion. And it continues here in the attic, where the illusion is she's this very sane, calm, peaceable bride. But then we see at the end of the attic with her face that she is anything but. She is absolutely crazy, maniacal person who can lop off her husband's heads and hide them in a hat box. Sorry, I just kind of went there, Kirk.
It's not really it's not really a good hiding spot, to be honest with you. Like if you're going to chop somebody's head off, like is that the first spot you're going to think is like, I should put it where heads, heads and hats, sure.
Well, in the hat box, the idea of putting heads in hat box, not only with the Hatbox Ghost, but we had those screaming heads in Disneyland would pop out of hat boxes themselves. Whereas Disney World, they were just hidden behind like trunks and furniture and stuff. So there was a lot of change over time as that. But the hat boxes have been around since for a very long time. Even in this like concept art, you can even see there's a hat box in the corner there as well. So hat boxes have always been a thing from the very beginning. I've talked a lot about hat boxes.
No, hey, it's appropriate for this.
Well, and then that's when you go in the Disney World version, and at the end, you see, of course, the hat boxes with the hats next to them. And if the hats aren't in the hat boxes, what is in the hat boxes? But in,
Heads.
like I said, and said in Disneyland, you get them next to the Hatbox Ghost. They're stacked there, but it's very dark, so you have to look for them. You have to keep an eye out. What's going on?
No, it's I'm getting suggestions on what to do with heads over here. It's a little also I all right, I'll out myself. While you were talking the entire time, I was doing my impression of the ghost popping out again.
You have to say "I do," or it doesn't count.
I do. I do. There you go.
That's accurate. I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
that's exactly what they sounded like.
Well, it's listen, Disney. If you need any kind of voice work, I am available for particularly ghosts coming out of Hatbox. This is kind of my specialty.
Of course. Yeah. So, I mean, that's mostly what I have about Constance. Did you have anything else about her in
No,
particular?
I feel. I mean, the only other thing is on the top of that wedding cake, the groom no head on the top of the because
Oh
normally you
yeah.
would have like bride and groom on the top of the wedding cake. There is no head on the groom. It's a little subtle one. You can see it very now that Constance is so well lit. You really can see it. Before it was just like out in the back. You really couldn't
Yeah.
tell. So it's nice that she's so well illuminated now. And like honestly, here's my biggest problem with the attic. They spend so much time and attention cultivating each one of the five husbands' scenes to show and tell the story of the wealth portrayal as they move along. I bet, I venture, if we asked, hey, did you notice anything interesting about the attic? I don't think anybody would talk about the wealth progression of the Black Widow bride. And
Mm-mm.
that's such a shame. And I think it's because just the illumination. There is not a lot of lighting. I don't think there should be a ton of lighting, but there should be enough for us to be able to see the detail. The only way we can see that is because Kate has amazing flash photography of it. And
Yeah.
that's a shame that like in low light scenario, in that instance, you really can't see anything. You can't. And
No.
even that hat rack. I've never noticed that hat rack ever. Ever. Until this conversation, I
Yeah.
didn't even know it existed. I didn't even know that hat boxes existed until Kate was like, "Yo, doofus, stop looking at her and look to the right." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's amazing." So now I got to look for the hat rack.
Yeah, it's incredible detail. I love it when how sometimes your dune buggies will slow down for loading. Somebody else is loading somewhere. This last time I rode the Haunted Mansion at Disneyland, mine slowed down in the attic, and it was like the best footage I ever got because it was like slowly moving past everything, and I saw all the details. It was so great. But
I I'm
it
not good at it, but I'm curious as to if because it takes so many frames per second. I've always thought like, maybe I should film stuff in slow mo if I want it to really come out nicely if we're moving quickly. But I don't know if there's any truth to that. I have to ask Jason or somebody else who's like actually good with this stuff. So
I don't think it would work in a dark environment. I think it would come out well.
Jackie just wrote Kirk me staring at the bride and Kate, yo doofus, look over here, which honestly, can I just say that's like a pretty much every time I ride something with Kate. Although there are a couple of times where I'll be like, "Hey, did you know?" And she's like, "Oh, I didn't know that." And I'm like,
It's
"Oof,
true.
all right, that's 1 out of 100." I just keep firing them off, hoping that one of them sticks.
Oh, you have taught me many, many things, but I actually think that I have that exact moment when I showed you the hat boxes on film and your reaction to it. So I might have to dig that one up because
Oh,
I
that's
have it
funny.
on camera.
You know what's crazy is I love now with iPhones, especially if the footage is on a phone, is geotagging locations. I love that because
Yeah.
you can go. I literally can go just look at a part of an attraction where it's located and be able to see it. So
Yeah. That's
can we? I'm gonna say just because of in terms of time, and I think you'll be comfortable with this. If there's anything else we want to wrap up with the attic, let's please do that. However, I want to hold how we get out of the attic for next turn, and I wanna use. I have it already queued up, but we're not gonna use it. The record. I want to play just a little snippet of the record storyline. I don't own the record. I almost had one on eBay for like $40 of like an original pressing, and it slipped away.
oh,
So
so
it's all
sad.
good. There'll be another time.
No, I agree. Because going out of the attic really is transitioning into the graveyard. So I think it's a very easy one to save for next time. But I do have just a couple very small things since we're running long here.
Yeah,
Just I
let's go.
want to make sure. So you mentioned like all the things you see in the attic, but it used to be that they were very random things that they put in the attic. It wasn't really planned out. So in Disneyland, they pulled a lot of props from things. So it was like they just went down to the warehouse and pulled out random stuff to like, this might be in an old attic, you know? And so they threw it in there, and they even had like a one of those horse posts from Main Street. I don't know if you guys have those in Disney World, but we have like little hitching post horses in Main Street in Disneyland. They have one of
We do
those.
not.
Okay. I didn't think so, but I was like, and they had this one I think is Disney World. In Disney World, they just bought random stuff from like flea markets and stuff to put in it. And so there's just like random things in the background. There's some columns and
What did the hang on? I like the way that this author phrased the things in the attic, and I have to read it because it's just such a funny line. Hang on, let me find it.
Yeah, so they had all these random things in the attic, and it was and also the cast members would have that tradition, which we've talked about on a previous episode, where they would just throw their shoes in the attic when they were finished with their tenure at the Haunted Mansion, which would then end up breaking things further. So by like I think in the 90s, they just had like a whole room full of just like junk that was broken and like not set in any particular way, with these ghosts that would randomly pop up and scream. It was just really a hot mess.
Oh, Jackie has a question about audio. Yeah, it was a hot mess, and in the book I found the line. It said the Haunted Mansion's dusty attic is filled with bric-a-brac, lamps, and long-stored gifts and mementos from weddings. But bric-a-brac.
Bric-a-brac.
Is Constance's audio the same in Walt Disney World and Disneyland now, and has it always been the same? I would say no, the audio was not the same, because we never had the telltale heartbeat like you guys did so pronounced. However, I believe the audio now is the same.
I think the bride's audio is the same. I
Yeah.
know that Telltale Heart is very loud in Disneyland, like very significant when you're going into the scene. And we also have the piano player playing Here Comes the Bride, which I think you guys do in the background. Do you have Here Comes the Bride playing, but just not with the piano player?
It's and to me it's also like Elliot had pronounced, it's like slightly off key, just a little bit. Just a little bit to create that like sense of like you know?
Yeah, I'll have to go back and watch my footage of it to confirm. I'm pretty sure it's the same audio of the piano. I feel like you guys do have a heartbeat, but it's just not as pronounced. So I'm going to go back and listen.
Yeah, I mean, I'll have to watch like a POV of it. I have a lot of videos up there. I'm always listening to. You hear the piano. The piano is very distinct. You hear her, and even her language is very like wispy and breathy and like ghastly overlay. You know, like almost like winds blowing through the trees kind of vibe. You
Yeah.
know, not shrieky, but like breathy.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
never noticed a heartbeat though.
yeah, I'm pretty sure. I know. I don't know. I just know when I went on the Disneyland one recently, I was like, this is so much louder than Disney World, if Disney World has it, because it's like the first thing you hear coming out of the ballroom going in is this loud thump 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 thump. So, um, so that's something. And I also want to mention this because I think I never knew that this was a thing until I just found this. And they used to have in the ceiling, they would have something called the Batmobile. And it looked like this. This is the Yale Gracie sketch. And this is what it looked like. It was literally bats who would swing around in the attic.
Na 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 Batmobile. It's a birdmobile.
It just
It's
it
the
just
exact
tickled
same thing.
just
Yeah.
that and the hanging strings just made me really, really happy to find out. So
Dude, the hanging strings at Knoebel's Haunted Mansion is so effective. It freaks you out. And you go into like a really lame room just before, like just after it. So it'll be like, it's literally yarn. It's yarn. And it hits you in the face and you're like, ugh. And then you go through like an old school strobe tunnel that like kind of has like a spinning thing. I'm going to send you a POV of it because like when's the next time you're getting out to Knoebel's? The answer is never. There's amazing dark rides there. They had one that was repurposed from Wildwood too. I'm like a huge geek for all the dark rides at Knoebel's, but you have to see this mansion. It's ridiculous.
I definitely want to see that. That's, did you ever hear that? Oh, thank you, Rhonda, for the tiny dinies. Oh, I got little tiny dinosaurs. Um, the did you ever hear that story of when they were developing the haunted mansion and like the janitors were too scared to go in there because of all the weird stuff that they had? But one time the janitors did go in there and they had those cobwebs put up all over everything. And the janitors thought they were real cobwebs and they like cleaned them all out. And so they were.
No, I didn't hear that. Did we ever tell the story of how Raleigh and them and Yale were building like all these like crazy effects and everything, and in their like it was really creepy in their office space because they
Yeah.
had all these effects. So like the janitors in the Disney like offices, they would go in there and they would like always be upset by it, and so then they set it up so when they would go in there, they had a motion sensor that would like make ghosts jump out. And these poor people that they were like, we refuse to go in there now. Oh, I think it was they said you have to keep the lights on or we won't clean the room. So they kept the
Yeah.
lights on, and as soon as they walked through the motion sensor, the lights went off and ghosts came out. It's just like the Imagineers are playing pranks on the janitorial staff over there in Anaheim is hysterical to me.
Oh, I love it. Those stories are the best.
Oh my gosh, dude, there are so many people in here dropping Wildwood, New Jersey, like old school spook houses, like Dracula's castle. We had a this is so crazy. And there's actually one Six Flags Great Adventure also had a really interesting spook house that burned down. It was a haunted house that burned with people in it.
Oh
Most
no.
people got out though.
Oh God.
But there was same thing happened actually at this Dracula's castle that burned down. But the Dracula's castle had a walkthrough and it had a boat ride. And it was
What?
so creepy. It was awesome. When I was a kid, I was like, that's so scary. I don't want to go in there, but I want to go in there, you know?
That'd be
There's so
interesting.
much like I grew up with like the most epic dark rides that were poorly maintained, like nails everywhere, like just like terror, but like horrifying, you know?
We have,
It's so
we have
cool.
that. We have a seasonal amusement park here in Oregon that's called Enchanted Forest. It's actually made fun of in the Simpsons series.
So you've sent me pictures, or we've talked about it here or
Yeah,
elsewhere, and it is crazy looking.
it is, and it's not terribly well maintained, but everybody goes there in the summer because literally there's nowhere other place in
Hmm.
Oregon to go to, right, for something like that. And they have like a Matterhorn ride where it has like a lid that closes you into this this like roller coaster thing. And there's a haunted mansion there too, but I don't know if I ever went in it because I had little kids with me at the time, and it looked genuinely terrifying. And I was like, I'm not going to traumatize my children any more than I did with the rest of the place.
Our annual trip when we would for Christmas time would be to go to like our version of the Enchanted Forest, which would be Storybook Land, which was like a rundown, kind of like not a carnival, but like just really old, beat up amusement park. And now it's been slightly renovated, but it's really cute and it's for kids. It's not for adults, but it's got
Yeah.
those like weird things like you walk into like Moby Dick's mouth and like the giant whale, and
A
you just
giant
hear
wheel.
noises like and like it has really bad audio animatronics of like some of the like a lot of these are grim fairy tales, so it'll be like Snow White and it'll be like all the dwarves. I have videos of all these. I got to put them up at some point. I know I've taken them. There is the rabbit. You go down the rabbit hole with Alice, and there's all of these like Alice little vignettes that are really like, ugh, what? And then you
Like,
exit through a card maze. It's cute,
oh
but it is like you can tell they don't have a budget.
my gosh. There's people chiming in on my chat. Pixie Pop Design says the Enchanted Forest has the scariest haunted mansion. She had to run through it. And then my mom reminded me, she's hanging out with me tonight. She says the crooked house. There's actually a crooked house where you're like, you walk sideways through it. And it's like everything's all weird angles.
There was, I mean, that was really commonplace. Like so, like Wildwood utilized that. Kennywood still has I believe it's called Noah's Ark, and the
I've been,
actual whole entire building will shift like this. So like
yeah.
like you're in a boat moving. And there's only a couple of rooms that are like that, but like yeah, anytime they have, and even in Disney World, because we just went to Tom Sawyer Island in whose mine is that? It's not the mine. It's a cavern. Do you remember? Is that Injun Joe's cave?
Yeah.
I
Mm-hmm.
think, or no. It's the Mystic Mine. The Mystic Mine is like slanted, and you'll just watch people like the rafters tilted, or like the support beams are tilted to the right, but the floor is tilted to the left. So like your head's like this, but your body's like this, and you're like, you just watch people like slam into the wall every time. But I love that Mystic Mine section is so cool. Not only does it have like a hidden Goofy all the way in there in the gems, which I did take a video of. It has like a cool like skull cavern area, which is awesome. And then you walk over like a little like elevated bridge over what looks like a digging trench too, and you hear like a bunch of bat noises. And then I make a bunch of bat noises and then jump out and scare. I get a couple stingers of my own for the kids and Mel. I hide in the caverns.
Where are you talking about? Where is this?
Tom
This
Sawyer
particular.
Island.
That's your Tom Sawyer Island.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Because ours is like pirate theme. So we have like Pirates of the Caribbean, and like there's like a ghost, a Pepper's ghost effect with like stuff you try to reach, and there's an actual like pirate who's like in prison telling his woes of dead men tell no tales, and that's interesting. I haven't been on Tom Sawyer Island in Disney World in a long time, and I might be
Yeah.
overdue.
Yeah, I mean we have there's two different tunnels. There's the barrel bridge, there's a mill, there's a
We have the Barrel Bridge.
there's Fort Langhorne, which is like think like 1800s military outpost for the United States. That's made out of like log cabin material. It's all wood.
Yeah,
And
we have
there's like a
two.
blacksmith shop. And then there's like an escape tunnel through there too. So there's three really cool tunnels that the
Interesting.
girls got obsessed with the escape tunnel this time. And we're like, we got to do it again and again and again. Like, how many times are we going to escape? But
Have
like,
you
it's
seen
fun, you know?
Have you seen the early footage of Tom Sawyer Island where there's the kids climb up and there's literally no safety railings at all. It's just like super high up and they could just like fall off the edge any time.
Yeah.
Hilarious to watch. I'm like, wow, there was like no safety features at all.
Dude, Kate, there was this crazy phenomenon. I forget what the era was, where basically kids were allowed play spaces where they would create their own playground equipment using like lumber and nails and all this stuff. Like, but it was in like adults were there, but kids were. It was like a way to be constructive and dangerous, but safe at the same time. It was like a whole entire era of playgrounds that were extremely popular that were what we would view as very sketchy, but like kids learn in those like what to be safe, how to be safe. Like our girls are like little monkeys; they climb everywhere, and like they've learned how to safely, if they have to fall, how they would backtrack, like all those kind of things, how to conserve energy, like all that stuff is. I don't know. It's like to me, like yeah, I get it. There's no safety things, and that's more of like a liability thing. Like most
Yeah.
kids aren't just like diving off railings. Do you know what I mean? They
No,
aren't.
but I'm
They
your
aren't.
kids, so they sometimes just fall.
They do, but like not as often as you would think. Do you know what I
It's true.
mean?
I just think
It's
it's
more of a litigious thing.
fascinating that like now they would never allow that stuff these days. But it's real. I might have to
Yeah,
find the
but you
footage
know
of
what? You know what bums me out so much? Like you go to AOA, and they've started to put like railings up around some of the cars because kids
yeah.
will like climb on like Mater and be like on the top of his crane, like woo, and you're like, okay, but that's to me, that's not Disney making a thing that's a jungle gym. It's Disney made a structure and a sculpture that parents are not telling their kids, hey, stop climbing on Mater's crane, you animal. You know, like that's like a
Yeah.
parenting problem. That's not a Disney problem. But the point is that then Disney worries about the liability, and now we can't get close and get really good pictures, and they have to put a fence around it. So like,
This is
it's
why
just
we don't have nice things.
I know, and that stinks. It stinks like that we have to parent or police people for good behavior. But I don't
Yeah.
know.
Oh, and I did get a comment from NorCali Steve. He said, "Did I know that Enchanted Forest was investigated by ghost adventurers?" And I did not know that, but I am not surprised because I get a vibe every time I'm there. I'm like, this place has got something.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting.
I have to arrange a trip out to Disneyland at some point, and like we keep talking about all this history of Disneyland, and yeah, I get to explore a world, but it's just, and I have friend like Mark went to Disneyland recently, Jason went to Disneyland recently, Lem and Ashley are always talking about Disneyland and possibly going out there. Now that she's a CM, I'm like, oh, all right, I gotta find,
Yeah,
I gotta figure
you're
that
way
out. I know I'm
that
overdue.
plan one. Let me know. I want to be there because I want to see your face when you experience all the things.
Just do this the whole time. I'll
Yeah.
just hang out with you and Sharif the whole time and just be like, dude, just I need like a week. Just let's. I'm not gonna say anything. I'm just gonna walk around, and you
Yeah.
guys just point at everything.
Yeah. Oh, that would be so epic.
Yeah,
You gotta
it'll happen. It'll happen.
make it. But in the meantime, I am
Yeah,
going to go to the world and come see you. So, well, and
very
Disney World.
soon. Very soon. We are. You are less than a month away for you, and the big day for our keys to the kingdom. Thank you, Alicia, again. June 11th, or
Yeah.
it's June 11th today. July 11th.
July.
It's
Yeah.
coming up so quick. So
Yeah.
quick. So we'll get amazing, and we can film in the servants' quarters. So we'll get to go to a behind the scenes kind of section of the haunted mansion. Which stop, just
Did you
stop.
confirm we can film? I didn't hear that. That would be
Yeah,
amazing.
the only reason why I know that is because Nate paging Mr. Morrow filmed like crazy in there.
Mm, interesting. Well, I can't wait
Yeah,
for that. It'd be
yeah.
amazing. Yeah.
Because it's technically, I guess, because technically it's not backstage because they do bring guests in there. It's just not usually on stage, if that makes sense. It's
Right.
a very
No, that.
special privilege. Technically, some guests can access the servant quarters. They can do like a little kind of like magic moment or, but it's not like you can go in and be like, yo, show me the servant quarters. And they're like, oh, yeah, no problem. They're right here. Go ahead.
I
It's very,
wish
very
I could
specialized.
walk through the ballroom, like actually walk through the ballroom. That would be my dream come true someday.
So two things, dream come true. One, you probably heard that Disneyland, they had a dinner. They've had multiple dinners in the Grand Hall,
Hmm.
multiple. And
Yeah.
usually like Raleigh Crump or somebody is leading at the head of the table. Insane. So that's number
Yeah.
one. And then number two would be they did or maybe I'm making this up, but I feel like I'm not. I swore that they had a giveaway contest for somebody to stay overnight in the mansion in the stretching room they set up as a bedroom. I swear that happened. But
What?
huh? I
I don't think
swear.
I've heard that.
Yeah,
I
I
want
now
to.
have to do research. I'll do research and then I'll find out if I'm lying and just I wish that happened and maybe I dreamt it, but I swore it was a contest way before my years, but yeah, they did. It was weird. Well, thank you, Carrie. Carrie's like my surrogate, knows everything Disneyland. CM, her and her hubs, like always helpful when I have questions about like random oddities. So it was a family. They did a tour and they live streamed it. See, now we got to find the video footage.
Oh my gosh.
But like I remember they walked around, they had dinner, and they like slept overnight, which is like so cool. Could you imagine
I
staying
can't. I
there?
mean, everybody's like, I want to do the dream suite. I was like, just put me in the mansion. Just leave me there. Just let me wander around the mansion on my own just to like look at stuff. That's
I
all I want.
You know what's it's so funny is like I've thought about that. Like it would be amazing if, for example, like the Halcyon or something, like you could access Batu at night. Nothing's open, but there's like a couple of cast members and you could just like walk around and take pictures and like feel the atmosphere. Like there's so many times where I think like, well, how is it like in Disneyland Paris or how is it like in Tokyo Disneyland where they have hotels that physically look into the parks? They look into the parks. Like you
Well,
can
in Disney,
leave
yeah.
into the park.
Well, California Adventure, I stayed one time. I stayed in the Grand California and in one of the suites that is a theme park view, and I could watch. We actually did watch what they did after hours, all the cast member activity, all the mechanics work. They actually took apart a piece of the Mickey like fun wheel and they like redid it, and we watched the whole thing like overnight. It is amazing to see what goes on in the parks at night.
This was if you want to see what that window looked like, here's the window, right? And here's Kate.
had a balcony. I had my drink and I was just watching what was going on. That was me the whole time.
I
It
don't
was
blame you. I mean, why not? That's just like so unique, you know?
Well,
What an
you can
experience.
watch World of Color from up there too, and they have
Oh, that's
music on
cool.
your TV, so you can watch. Yeah, so I rented DVC points to do it in case anybody ever wants to do this. I rented DVC points and I put in a room request for like very specific rooms that faced this direction, and we had a 2 bedroom one, and it was like the best place I've ever stayed in my whole life.
Well, I
With
mean, like, imagine if Tony's Town Square was actually a hotel, right? Like, it's in
yeah,
the parks. Like,
yeah,
you
like it
would
was.
have to think that they would have some sort of perk for people who are staying in the park.
Mhm.
And what a cool experience would that be for them? You'd have to price it appropriately so that you couldn't keep all areas open. It's much like I think most people are pretty surprised or shocked that companies can rent out an entire park for a private party or a section, which a lot of times it ends up being Sunset Boulevard in studios
Yeah, or
because they can
Avengers.
just take that whole entire section or Avengers Campus. Yeah.
Yeah, that happens a lot. And yeah, imagine if we were supposed to have the hotel on Main Street there in Disney World that it was the Gulf Hospitality House instead. But that's why there's balconies on Main Street in the above the entryway, because they were actually going to be balconies where people would stay, and you can go out, have your coffee, and enjoy Main Street USA. Like, I want to do that.
That's what I'm saying.
The
Although
dream.
right now it was a little chaotic when we left, but they are doing for cast members right now at the various parks iridescent events. So it's like these iridescent evenings events that are just for CMs and a +1, and they get to go into the parks and guess what they're playing for everybody who misses it? Happily Ever After.
I want that too. Well, Elise asked, why did they scrap that idea? Um, I don't know exactly. I know that they turned the area behind that building into a cast member parking lot. My guess is it had to do with logistics of like how do they have people in the parks but not have them wandering the parks at night. That they lock the front door so they can't go into the parks. Or because they could still climb down the balcony. It just I have a feeling it was more of a logistical thing, and also where do they park and how do they so. But I don't know for sure exactly why they scrapped the idea, but I just know they did, and they turned it into that Gulf Hospitality House, and now it's the Tony's Town Square, and the meet and greet for Mickey different now, but it still looks
How,
like a lobby in the
I just
inside.
I just would love if you could stay anywhere physically in the parks and they had like 2 rides open. Like you know what I mean? Like you couldn't
Yeah,
access other areas of the parks. They just had 2 rides and you could just go on 2 rides until like 3 a.m. And I know they have like there are mechanical things and all that stuff that kind of like so maybe it alternates. It's just like one ride is open, you know?
but they do that for weddings and stuff too. I've seen that when they can they can choose which ride they want to have open for their guests, and they party in front of the castle. I've seen people have that who have more money than I do, different tax bracket. Not me.
Well, I just saw breaking news. A couple selected a meet and greet over food
Meet
at
and
their
greet.
wedding
Oh,
at Disney. They selected a meet and greet and ditched catering. So make sure you bring a bag lunch because you're on your own.
pack your snacks.
That's it. Yeah, well, it's expensive. I get it.
Oh
And
yeah.
uh, and
Yeah.
they also just brought back all of the robotic cameras too
Oh
for
yeah.
uh, for doing PhotoPass too, which is a
I
shame
know. I know. That's sad. It's not the
because
same
you
as
just don't. It's nowhere near the same. Nowhere near the same. Although, like, we're getting closer and closer as
uh,
things are opening up. I'm waiting for Phantasmic. You guys already have it. I can't wait until Phantasmic. We have a date. I'm hoping it comes soon.
I love Fantasmic. Brings me right back to my childhood. Someone mentioned that they have a morning jog at California Adventure now too. That is happening, where you can jog around California Adventure before the park opens, which
That's
is pretty
like
cool.
I feel like you would find nothing but senior citizens. It's like going to if most people don't realize this that like malls open at 6 a.m. for senior citizens to work out. It's like way before any of the shops are open and you can just like
Yeah,
walk around the mall or exercise in the mall and that's exactly what you see. That's what DCA is.
yeah, pretty much.
It's funny. Everyone's convinced me and I did book the 10K to run. I wanted the 5K, but it sold out by the time my payment processing went through, and I panicked to do a run Disney event. I don't like running. I don't. It's like not enjoyable at all for me. But everyone convinced me because I get to see the parks in a different light during a different time period. So I'm like, okay, if I'm gonna run, that's a worthy enough reason to run. So
I'd probably walk it.
yeah, I should
You could
probably get like should get a go. I need to get one of those GoPros that stream directly to YouTube, and I'll just like strap it to my head and just like run it out. You know?
you have to have a fun outfit though. That's like the best part of those
Oh
events.
yeah. Well, come on, come on. I am like a huge fan of dressing up. You never saw probably my. I'll have to send you a picture of my Hades from the Descendants 3. We did Descendants for Halloween last year, and
That's fun.
what was so much fun is you could actually wear costumes in the parks and not be at a ticketed event. That was really cool for adults because usually you could only do that for Mickey's Not So Scary or for Boo Bash, and so yeah, we all dressed up, and there was nobody else dressed up in the parks. Like maybe like two other couples, and with their kids, and like it was so much fun, and the girls had a blast. So, but I had like a big Hades wig, leather jacket. I painted the back of the jacket exactly the way his was. It was dope.
Oh man, that
Yeah, it was
sounds
good.
awesome. Well, and somebody else mentioned there's yoga in front of the castle sometimes at Disney World. That's true. I've seen that too.
Yeah, they
I've
they
never
do
done
that, and they include the mat, which is very nice for
that. That is
like,
nice.
yeah, yeah. They it's like they call it sunrise yoga, but there's no sun rising because it's at like 6 a.m. But I see tons of people do that. I am excited for the character meet and greets too because there's a lot of photo ops with like rare characters, so that's exciting too. But like, there's some people who are like do the marathons, and I'm like, ugh, everything about that. The
I'm
6 miles sounds disgusting to me. I'm not looking
no,
forward to that, but you
no,
know,
good with that I'll live vicariously through you because I'm not doing that.
yeah,
But I feel like at some point you and I are going to have to chat, like if we're going to be doing a specific Disney bound on our day when we do this Keys of the Kingdom tour, because I feel like we should wear something that matches. And is that my technically my Carpe
yes,
Diem day? Is that going to be my Carpe Diem day? What
yeah. How could it not be? Like we're already doing something that you've always wanted to do.
I know.
I'm just jacking the end of the day, but you're gonna be totally cool with it. So.
Okay.
But yeah, you
No.
should plan it out and figure out what you. I mean, here's the thing that's so funny about your Carpe Diem day is your Carpe Diem day is going to be like, all right, let's go look at the masonry brickwork around this Tomorrowland defunct area that I still think might be around.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Like
It'll
this
be
thing,
exploration.
or I think this random mark might be on this thing that used to be this thing. It's gonna be weird. So
You
brace
guys
yourself
don't
for
know
it.
this, but like there was well maybe I don't know if people when I don't know if I was streaming or not at the time, but I was trying to connect with you at the Magic Kingdom and we did connect, but I ended up finding you in this was we ran into each other in Sir Mickey's by
Oh,
the
I remember.
castle, and you were like filming in the rafters, and I'm like, oh, I found Kate. There she is. She's literally like, and you're like, hang on, did you ever see this? And I'm like, nah, I never did.
Well, then we went outside and we like stared at the top of the roof for a while because that's
We
where
were
they used
trying
to
to figure
do
out where the
the
mechanics were for the pull on the Sword in the Stone, and where do they do fireworks. So yeah,
everybody else going by us. They're going on rides. They're eating. They're on a mission, and we're just staring at the roof.
yeah, there was.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
But that's like pretty normal, like, hey, did
Yeah.
you ever see this rock? What? Okay, let's look. Like
No,
that's normal.
my favorite was when we got in the aerial queue just to see the Nautilus, and we didn't
And
ride
then
on the.
left. And then we
We just
left. All right,
ditched.
we got to get out of here. What? And what's funny about that is we waited for the Nautilus part. It's not like we
Mhm.
like cut in front of the queue to go see the Nautilus. We waited probably 15 minutes in the line for the queue to see the Nautilus, and then we jammed.
We just left.
It's
A lot of
ridiculous.
confused people wondering
But
what
you
was
never
wrong.
saw it before, so that was like a good uncovering.
It was really cool. See the rock work. Rocks have a lot of cool things in Disney.
I still have to plan out the day, which I think is coming up because it's Mickey's birthday, right? What month and day of the year is Mickey's birthday? But whatever day of the year that is, in Ariel's queue is when
1928. Like, I know the year. He was
Yeah,
born in
it's
1940.
whatever that day of the year
I should know that.
is where the aerial queue. Hang on, Mickey's
I can't
has
believe.
a hidden Mickey that shows up November 18th. So on November 18th, if you
Yes,
go through the aerial queue at a very certain hour, a hidden Mickey shows up because it shows the light passes through at the exact perfect spot,
like the
which is
rarest hidden.
ridiculous. It
Yeah.
is the rarest. It's in like you get an hour and a half to view it.
Yep. And that's it. And
I've
you're,
never seen it. So, but November 18th, you know where I'll be.
yeah. Oh,
I'll be in Ariel staring at trying to find where this thing is.
staring at the
People will be
rocks.
like, "Are you going on? Are you?" No. I should just wear a shirt that says, "I'm looking for a sunlight hidden Mickey. Please go on to Ariel." Just so everyone knows.
Just keep moving. Big arrow.
Yeah, right.
Don't mind me. I'm a little crazy.
Hmm.
Work. Oh my gosh, I can't wait. I have so many random things I'm going to be looking for there. So I'll probably be live streaming, when you guys aren't, just because I'm not going to do that. But if you guys want to hang out with me and look at very random things in Disney World, I'll be live streaming in it's July 10th to 14th, probably more 11th to 14th, because I get in late because I have to fly cross country to get there.
Hmm.
Bummer.
Transcon.
Yeah.
Exciting.
Well,
Sweet. Well, okay. Let's wrap this up. Thank you so much again for everybody hanging out for another episode of Distory. This is episode number 8, and this is part number 7 of the Haunted Mansion series, which is crazy. Next week we'll be headed out of the attic. How do we get there? We'll find out, and then into the graveyard, which I probably bet we only make it halfway through the graveyard just because there's so much going on in there. But that's pretty typical for us.
yeah.
You can check this out at YouTube on Walrus Carp, the video version of this. And then Kate also posts the audio version of this where you can find all of your streaming. So iTunes and Spotify are the two biggest. Just look at Distory with Kate and Kirk, and you will find the Haunted Mansion episodes if you've missed anything up until that time. And we kind of smashed together in episode 1 Pirates, and I don't feel good about it. We'll come back to Pirates when people forget that we even did Pirates.
Yes.
And that
Yes.
will be a 20-part series.
I know. Definitely. Like that
Yeah.
we'll take our time. We'll go nice and slow. It'll
Oh,
be
another
great.
tiny dino. Thank you for the tiny dino.
Yeah. I don't know what we'll be doing after the Haunted Mansion, but we still got quite a few episodes left of that because we still got to visit the ones that are the international versions of the ride and also the overlay for Nightmare
Oh
Before
my gosh,
Christmas.
there's so much to go from, you know. Yeah, just crazy. Absolutely crazy how much history is in this. I feel like I'm not like there's certain things I'm passionate about. I would love to do Big Thunder. I would,
Yes.
you know. I think Big Thunder maybe could be the next one.
Yes. Well, and there's so much history there. So,
Yeah,
oh my.
exactly. And the storytelling. That would be one where I would love to see a live action from. So,
I probably could do that. My Wi-Fi probably would hold up for that one. It's outside.
dude, you got to ask Sharif. Both Sharif and Jose streamed perfectly in the mansion last night. I watched the
Yeah,
whole
he's
entire
got that
thing.
hot spot. I'll have to figure that out. I will figure that out for you guys. I will do it. I'll
Yeah,
figure it
but
out.
I don't think you need the hotspot. I think it just might be a service thing.
No, he has a hot spot. He showed it to me. I talked
No,
with him.
no. I know he has a hotspot, but like, do you have the same service provider anyway right now? Because I don't
No,
think you do.
no.
The only reason why I say this about the hotspot thing is my buddy works for AT&T, and he does the installs, a lot of the installs for Disney World. And he goes, dude, if you buy a hotspot, think about this. Just think about this logically. There's a bunch of cell towers. Now you're going to take a device that's going to take the information from the cell towers and then feed it to your cell phone. Or you can take your cell phone that takes the data directly from the cell towers to your phone. Would you rather have an extra device or would you rather have your phone? He said, just get a good phone and get on the service. In Disney World, it's AT&T. I don't know what it is in Disneyland.
I think it might be AT&T there as well. I think
Yeah.
just
I
what
mean,
they think.
it made such a world of a difference going from Verizon to AT&T. I almost never use my Verizon phone for anything except for pulling up like if we're talking about something and I need to show a visual or doing lightning lanes or doing mobile orders. Like I do not use that phone for any streaming anymore. It's completely useless.
Yeah. Yeah. I
So,
I will have to figure it out. I will figure it out because
hmm
I want to live stream from Disneyland, but it's just impossible at the moment.
yeah.
Feels like it.
hmm
But Disney
hmm
World,
hmm
I'm usually okay in Disney World, so I'm excited for that.
Yeah. Sweet. All right. Well, Kate, thank you again. Once again, if you were trying to find any of Kate's amazing content, which, by the way, her series of Disneyland against Disney World, how many people are giving you that type of content where they have coast to coast parks, ride footage almost perfectly aligned to give you what the differences are? I think it's one of the best series on there, and you have that melodic and historical perspective that I think people really you know, appreciate and enjoy. So I just look forward to even more attractions being used.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm excited for my trip because I'll be able to get some full length footage of the Disney World rides. So I'll be able to do quite a few more of those in the coming month. So
Yeah,
very excited
that's
for that.
awesome.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Well,
Well, thank you so much, Kate, and I appreciate it. And you guys have an incredible rest of your weekend. Thank you for joining us on a different night than normal, but typically you'll find this on Fridays at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time or 5:30 p.m. Pacific Time.
Pacific time.
Yeah,
Yes.
there we go. Or Disney World versus Disneyland time. So,
Thank you, Kirk, for hanging out with me as always. And thank you, all of you guys, for hanging out and chatting, asking questions. We do read all of your comments, even if we don't get to all of them all the time because we're busy just talking too much about the Haunted Mansion. So thank you for hanging out with us. We really appreciate you being here because it makes the show so much more fun.
and if you have any other questions that we maybe ignored or did not communicate because we were too busy on a rant about something, please jump over to the Discord. The easiest way to find it, honestly, just walruscarp.com. I now have a link all the way at the top that just says join Discord, or you can go to walruscarp.com/links and find it. It's the second button on there. Super easy, and it's a chat. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And you can
So,
learn all things about Disney, but then we have a separate channel just for Distory.
yes. And you can always ask your questions there, even if it's not about our current series. We would love to talk with you and geek out about Disney history. So
So much so that you may quit the Discord because you're like, these guys really are nerds. And I'll go, I'm sorry, but yes.
it's true to an unhealthy degree sometimes, but it's good. It's good.
Yep, exactly right.
Well, thank you, everybody, for being with us and exploring the Haunted Mansion. All you foolish mortals out there, we really appreciate you guys.
And remember next week to bring your death certificates. See you guys. Have a good rest of your weekend.
Bye. Have a good night.